Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and I've got a great video for you today because we are going to be checking out Intel's brand new 14th generation Raptor Lake refresh CPUs. We've got the 14900K, the Core i9 and the Core i5-14600K here today, and we are going to be comparing those against the 12th and 13th generation CPUs from Intel, as well as AMD's Ryzen 7000 series. Also today, we have built an absolutely insane mini-ITX PC, which has a Core i9-14900K at the heart of it. It's an incredible water-cooled mini-ITX PC, and you can see all of the customization, water cooling hardware. It's got an RTX 4090 in there, as well as 12 terabytes of M.2 storage. Definitely want to check out that video that also went live today. You can see it in a banner up above or in the links down below, along with all the hardware and processors that we're going to be talking about in today's video. So, first and foremost, the specifications. Well, I'll just put up a table, but as you know, or may not know, you probably do, the CPUs don't feature a new architecture. So we are just looking at a slightly revised, a slightly more refined version of the Raptor Lake architecture that was first featured in the 13th gen CPUs. So core counts have not increased except for the 14700K, which is unfortunately the CPU that we don't have here today, but we should be able to take a look at it pretty soon. That one gets an extra 4 E-cores, efficient cores, so it should be a little bit faster in multi-threaded workloads. The other two CPUs that we've got here, they purely rely on frequency increases, basically. So the 14900K, for example, can now reach a maximum boost frequency of 6 gigahertz and is usually hovering around 5.7 gigahertz across all of its performance cores, its P cores in multi-threaded workloads. So a slight uplift there compared to the 13900K. So the main thing we need to talk about though is whether or not you actually want to upgrade to these CPUs, because there is a bit of a caveat with Intel's LGA 1700 platform and its 600 and 700 series motherboards, which is that there is no future upgrade path. The 14th gen series that we've got here, basically, we didn't expect these to arrive. We thought everything was going to end at 13th gen and Meteor Lake was going to usher in a new processor socket at some point late this year. That's been delayed and is now, I think, going to be called Arrow Lake, and we will still be having a new processor socket later on next year. But for now, you know, if you bought into this socket early on, you're kind of probably rubbing your hands because you've got an extra generation of processors to choose from, and your platform and your motherboard lives to see another day. Now, the question comes then, where should you be if you're upgrading to 14th generation? If you've got a 12th gen CPU, for example, such as a 12400, a Core i5-12400, or a Core i5-12600K, you might well want to upgrade to something like a Core i5-14600K or 14700K. You'll get more cores, you'll get higher frequencies, you'll almost certainly get more performance in pretty much everything, and you don't need to upgrade your memory. You can use the same motherboard, the same memory that you've got now. A similar argument could be made if you are looking to upgrade from an older AMD Ryzen or socket AM4 system, should I say. So with those systems, you'll be using DDR4. You can use DDR4 with these CPUs. You can't use that with AMD socket AM5. You've got to fork out for memory and a pricey motherboard as well. Whereas Intel has an advantage in the motherboard stakes because you can get LGA 1700 motherboards for not a lot of money at the moment. So potential option there as an additional way to upgrade to the 14th gen processors, mainly in money saving. And if you only upgrade for every 4 or 5 years or something like that, if your brand new PC now can't be upgraded in 4 or 5 years, well, you're probably not too concerned about that. You're just going to go for the latest Intel platform, the latest AMD platform down the line anyway. Where these processors are probably not worth upgrading from is from like a high-end Intel CPU based on this same platform. So maybe a 12900K might be a questionable upgrade. Also, if you've already got a 13600K or a 13900K, again, potentially questionable upgrades, given that you're probably not going to see that much more performance. But the performance, I'm not going to talk about it too much here because you'll see the graphs and you can make up your own mind once you've seen the performance in a minute. But there are other options in terms of upgrades or worthy upgrades, or worthy upgrade paths, should I say, to these 14th gen processors, and not just if you've got like a 12400K or something like that. you might want to upgrade from older platforms as well, older Intel platforms too, if you don't mind the fact that this platform doesn't have any future generations of processors coming to it. But then again, if you go out right now and buy a 14600K or a 14700K, you are probably not going to need another CPU for 3 or 4 years anyway. So today we are going to be looking at those benchmarks, coming to some conclusions at the end. I would like to thank Intel for sending over these CPUs today. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I love hearing what you guys think of these reviews. And also, what do you think about Intel's brand new 14th gen CPUs? Are you going to be investing in them? What platform are you coming from? Do you think they're a worthwhile upgrade for you? And also, don't forget to check out this bad boy here and its exclusive video here on my channel today. And that's it, apart from my pleading for you to subscribe to my channel and comments and liking and all that kind of stuff. So let's crack on with the benchmarks. First of all, I should quickly mention my test system, which includes 2 motherboards, one for AMD and one for Intel. For Intel, we've got the Asus ROG Maximus Z790 Hero, and for AMD, we've got the MSI X670E Tomahawk Wi-Fi. Both of those are equipped with 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz DDR5 memory, and we have a couple of PCI Express 4 SSDs in there as well. Both systems are liquid cooled using custom liquid cooling and a 360mm radiator. They also use the very latest drivers, and Windows 11 fully up to date with the latest drivers and updates as of October 2023. The first benchmark we're talking about is Adobe Premiere Pro, and this is the Puget Systems benchmark, which runs through a real-world workflow. Here, the 4900K doesn't quite manage to come top. That's reserved for the 2 Ryzen 9s, and the Ryzen 9 7950X3D also not that far behind either. So the 14900K not really offering that much extra performance over the 13900K here, but it does offer a lot of extra performance over the 12900K. The same can be said for the Core i5-14600K. It's outgunned by the Ryzen 7 7700X here, and also offering a significant amount extra performance over the 12600K, but not that much over the 13600K. Some more Adobe benchmarking going on here, and we've got the Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop test combined in the Procyon benchmark from UL Benchmarks. And AMD, again, as we've seen in the past, doesn't seem to matter how many cores you have in this test. It's all about the internal architecture and latency and all that kind of stuff, and AMD just seems to win here. Even the Ryzen 5 7600X outperforms the 14900K. It's only the slower clocked 3D Vcache models that perform slower. So compared to the 13900K, the 14900K does offer a fair amount extra performance here, and even more so over the Core i9-12900K. The 14600K, again, not offering that much more performance over the 13600K, but definitely a lot of extra performance over the 12600K. Next up is Cinebench, and for now I'm sticking with the R23 version, not moving to the new R24 version for the simple reason the latter takes an absolute age to run through the benchmarks, and it would have added hours, if not days, to my benchmarking schedule, which I just didn't have time for this time. So sticking with R23 for now. So at the top of the graph, the 14900K, adding a little bit of amount extra performance over the 13900K, but definitely not enough to warrant an upgrade. It does, however, beat the 7950X and the 7950X3D to the post, and also offers a huge amount extra performance over the Core i9-12900K. So if you've got a Core i9-12900K, 12700K, that kind of thing, and you want a lot more performance without going for a different platform, then the 14900K is definitely worth considering. The 14600K, again, not really offering that much extra performance over the 13600K, but outstripping the Ryzen 7 7700X, the 7800X3D, and offering a huge amount of performance over the Core i5-12600K. So again, a decent upgrade from a 12th gen mid-range CPU to the 14600K here. Now we're moving on to the single-threaded test in Cinebench, and this is a good indicator of single-core performance, how much performance you'll see in lightly threaded workloads. And of course the Core i9-14900K Definitely hitting that 6 gigahertz speed across at least 2 cores that I saw. So that's obviously a couple of 100 megahertz faster than the Core i9-13900K, and as a result, it gets around about an extra 60 points in this test. And obviously a lot faster than anything AMD has to muster, and a heck of a lot faster than the Core i9-12900K as well. The Core i5-14600K, not doing badly, definitely faster than the 13600K and 12600K. So again, if you're concerned about lightly threaded workloads in terms of raw performance, then both of the new CPUs are noticeably quicker than their predecessors and a lot faster than 12th gen CPUs. Next up is HandBrake, and it's another win here for Intel. The Core i9-14900K sitting right there at the top of the graph. Yet again, though, not really offering that much more performance over the 13900K, but offering a lot of extra performance over the 12900K, pretty much around 40-45% extra performance than that CPU. So again, definitely worth an upgrade if you do a lot of this stuff. The Core i5-14600K managing to better the Ryzen 7 7800 X3D and Ryzen 7 7700X, and also offering a lot of extra performance over the Core i5-12600K as well, but as usual, not really offering that much more over the 13600K. So our first game test then is Forza Horizon 5, and because we're using a very, very powerful graphics card in the form of the RTX 4090, I've included both 1080p and 1440p resolutions in all the games, just because 1080p and an RTX 4090 is massively skewing things to put a lot more load on the CPU than you would probably see in real life. So 1440p is kind of a compromise there. A lot more pixels going on in there, so less of a load on the CPU and probably a more balanced, realistic graph, that one. In any event, the Core i9-14900K offering some of the fastest frame rates out there, and offering the highest 99th percentile, and beating either of AMD's 3D Vcache models that we've got in the graphs. And you have to look at the non-3D Vcache models, the 7950X, that kind of thing, 7900X, and just see how far they are down the graph. So AMD's kind of got the issue here that its 3D Vcache models aren't great in a lot of content creation, but they are very good in games for the most part, mostly with the 7800X 3D, not so much with the 7950X 3D. It does tend to suffer in some situations because of its internal makeup. But you kind of have to go for one or the other. You either go for maximum multi-threaded performance without 3D Vcache, or you go for maximum gaming performance with 3D Vcache, but you lose out to the Intel CPUs, which are kind of great at everything. So that's definitely one advantage that Intel has, especially with the Core i9-14900K here. The 14600K, kind of middle of the graph at 1080p and falling down a bit at 1440p, just the way that these things go in the games, but still managing to better the Ryzen 9 7900X at 1080p, and also slipping down the graph, but still kind of matching the Ryzen 9 7950X 3D, and doing a little bit better than the Core i9-12900K as well. Also offering a fair amount extra performance over the 12600K, if not the 13600K. Moving on to Far Cry 6 now then, and the Core i9-14900K pretty much matching the Core i9-13900K, just a couple of frames in it there at the top. The Ryzen 7 7800X3D didn't quite manage to match their 99th percentiles, but it did manage to better them on the average frame rate, and that was the same again at 1440p. It's slightly slower than the Core i9-14900K on the minimum 99th percentile, but it was faster than Intel's top CPUs on the average frame rate. So stepping down to the Core i5-14600K, manages to beat most of the other AMD CPUs other than the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. Not that much faster, really, than the 13600K, although it did offer a fairly high average frame rate compared to that CPU. And obviously a lot faster than the Core i5-12600K. So again, if you've got the 12600K, you're looking for a drop-in upgrade, the 14600K could be a very worthwhile investment. At 1440p, pretty much the same is true. The Core i5-14600K, about a third of the way down the graph, 120 frames per second. And again, the Core i5-12600K way down at 99 frames per second on the minimum 99th percentile. The Core i9-14900K sitting at the top of the graph again, but beaten by the Ryzen 7 7800X3D on the average frame rate. Moving on to Watch Dogs Legion then, and at both resolutions, the AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D just really powering to a win here with a big lead over the Core i9-14900K. But it's not great news for AMD's other CPUs though, including the Ryzen 9 7950X3D, which, due to its internal makeup, lots and lots of cores spread across lots of different areas, it's just not really able to keep up anything like with the frame rates of the Ryzen 7 7800X3D, which is a bit of a shame. So the Ryzen 9 7950X, Ryzen 7 7700X all outperformed by the Core i9-14900K, also offering a little bit extra performance over the Core i9-13900K, not really worth the upgrade. Definitely worth the upgrade though over the Core i9-12900K, sitting in the lower third of the graph. The Core i5-14600K, slightly disappointing here, but still offering a little extra performance over the 13600K and a lot of extra performance over the 12600K. But this game clearly enjoying a 3D V-cache and lots of cores and high frequencies. Our final benchmark is power consumption, and unsurprisingly, given the lack of much architectural movement under the hood of the new CPUs, the Core i5-14600K and Core i9-14900K performing fairly similarly to their counterparts, or should I say predecessors, the 13900K and 13600K. Slightly less voltage on both of them, not so much with the 14900K, it's just a couple of volts in it, which is kind of within the margin of error. But a noticeable amount lower for the 14600K compared to the 13600K, and these are all fresh run off the test system again. So just you're probably not looking at a whole lot of extra power or thermals with the new CPUs. If you're already managing with a 13900K, you probably won't see that much extra here. But it just goes to show how much extra power consumption we're seeing now compared to the 12th generation models. Obviously more cores available now, a higher power consumption. The 12900K drawing 305 watts for the system versus 543 watts for the system as a whole, so an extra 250 watts over the initial flagship on LGA 1700. And pretty much similar situation to the 14600K, but to a much lesser extent. We've got 312 watts for the system as a whole versus 263 for the 12600K. Again though, AMD offering a better bang for your buck in terms of power efficiency here. The 7950X just 376 watts, and the amazing Ryzen 7 7800X3D, the system as a whole drawing just 193 watts from that CPU. So if you're gaming and you're concerned about power consumption, the Ryzen 7 7800X3D does make a very strong case for itself. So that's it for all the benchmarks. We're going to move on to the conclusion now, but not before I ask you for a moment of your time to subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to have your support, and it just means that I can keep doing these reviews and lots of other cool stuff besides, as you can probably see in all my other videos, not least of all this crazy mini-ITX PC that I've built today. You can see the full build video. Fully water-cooled with dual 280mm radiators and a Cooler Master case NR200P mini-ITX case. We've got the 14900K in here right now, as well as an RTX 4090 and 12 terabytes of NVMe storage. So definitely check out this video today. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well and turn on those notifications. Also, like and comment on my video as well. It would mean a lot if you did that. It just helps punch me through the algorithm and gets me noticed. And I love hearing what you guys are up to as well. What system are you considering upgrading from at the moment? Are you going to be upgrading to a 14th gen CPU or a 13th gen, or are you going AMD? Always love hearing your thoughts in the comments. Now, in terms of whether or not you should buy a 14th gen CPU, I think there are lots of things to discuss here. First and foremost, I stand by my earlier prediction that these are going to be pretty good upgrades if you own a 12th gen CPU. We've seen with the 12600K to the 14600K and the 12900K to the 14900K, huge amounts of extra performance in games and content creation. So whether you're moving from an older Core i5 to a new Core i5 or stepping up to an i7 or an i9, you will see a lot of extra performance if you jump a generation or two, and it will give your system a new lease of life for another couple of years, hopefully. So what is a bit of an issue there, though, is the fact that 13th gen CPUs are a little bit cheaper, and they are not that much slower either. There's not a whole load of extra performance that we're seeing here today, generation on generation. The architecture is the same, etc., etc. So we're not really seeing a huge amount of extra performance overall. Now, a lot would depend there on how much the 13th gen and 14th gen models are in your area. I certainly wouldn't want to pay more than an extra 3, 4, 5% for a 14th gen CPU for the simple reason you're just not seeing that amount of extra performance. Now, outside of that little bubble, things are pretty complicated because you'll be moving from an older AMD or Intel platform to LGA 1700, and the biggest caveat there is that there is no upgrade path. There are no more CPUs coming to the LGA 14700 platform, so while motherboards might be cheap, you might be able to transplant your DDR4 memory to save some cash versus going AMD socket AM5 or waiting for a future socket that will also use DDR5 memory. The problem you have is that there is not going to be an upgrade path. So you'll have to weigh up that decision yourself and think very, very carefully about whether it's worth it. You might save some money in the short term, but you might end up having to upgrade and sell all your hardware the next time you want to upgrade. So that's definitely something to be aware of. There are some situations where I would definitely consider that. For example, if I don't upgrade my PC every 3, 4, 5 years, for example, you're probably not going to be too bothered about whether in 5 years' time you can, because you won't be able to buy a new CPU anyway. Anything that's released next year or something, won't be compatible, but probably wouldn't be available new anyway. So that's one situation where I would probably consider going for Intel's new platform as well. The other reason to consider it, of course, is the performance. AMD has some great CPUs, but it seems to kind of be going two channels with content creation with its non-3D V-Cache models and 3D V-Cache which are aimed at games. The gaming performance, especially of the Ryzen 7 7800X3D, is stellar in most situations. There are 1 or 2 games where the Core i9-14900K was faster. The 14900K is definitely more consistent in games. And the problem both 3D V-Cache models have is that they get trounced by Intel in content creation because they don't have those clock speeds to really punch through unless there's a situation that just prefers AMD processors. For example, we saw in one of the graphs, I think it was Procyon with Lightroom and Photoshop. But outside of that, you're looking at way more content creation, multi-threaded performance by going with Intel. On the flip side, the non-3D V-Cache models have great multi-threaded performance, but Intel is definitely faster overall in games now. So it's a complicated situation. There are lots of reasons to consider upgrading to these CPUs. I think the biggest caveat for most people will be whether or not to go for a 13th gen or a 14th gen, and that will depend on the pricing in your area. So that's it from me today. I'd like to thank Intel for sending over these CPUs. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you soon.